Okay, great. So good morning, Danielle Lightning, Special Projects Coordinator with Cando. I am from Ermineskin Cree Nation in Muskowekwan, Alberta. This morning, our webinar is called Indigenous Homes Innovation Initiative, Accelerator to Implementation. And we're excited to present this webinar to everybody. It's one of the projects Cando has been working on here for the past year. And we have some exciting presenters here with us this morning. So what I'm going to do is just introduce them, and then we'll go straight into an overview of what we're going to look at today. So with us today, we have one of the IHII Indigenous Homes Innovation Initiative projects, Muskowekwan First Nation Family Healing and Wellness Center. We have with us Cynthia Desjarlais, who is our lead innovator with this project. She is a member of Muskowekwan First Nation and also a band counselor. She's also on the board for the Muskowekwan Family Healing and Wellness Center. And then we also have with us Rachelle Holterman. She's the project coordinator with Muskowekwan Project. So she's been working with this project for the past 3 years, and also partner and senior project director with Holterman Waller Strategy Inc. So welcome Cynthia and welcome Rachelle with us today. And then we also have with us our other IHII project that's moved forward from Accelerator to implementation. And I'll explain more about that in a minute here. It's Pikangicum First Nation Community Safe Village. And we have with us our lead innovator from that project, Kim Sigurdson. He has his own company called Indigenous Innovations Corp. And also co-chaired the Pikangicum Working Group and sits on the board of directors for Truth North Aid. So welcome, Kim. So those are the presenters with us this morning on our webinar. And as mentioned earlier, this will be recorded and posted on our Cando website. So if anyone misses it or if you want to share it, you can definitely take a look on there afterwards. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just go through an overview of what today will look like for the webinar. Before I get into that, just a few house rules. So what we're going to do is ask if you're not on mute, if you can mute yourself, and also just for the sake of the presentation, just turn off your camera. And we'll have some time at the end for some Q&A where you can ask questions and you can turn on your camera if you like at that point. But that's that. And so our overview of the presentation today, our webinar, we'll go through some background on IHII and what it is, also Cando's role. We'll go through selected projects, focus areas of IHII and those projects. We'll also go through Accelerator launch event, and also and then we'll go into the two projects there that we're speaking with today, Muskowekwan First Nation Family Healing and Wellness Center, and also Pikangicum First Nation Community Safe Village. And then we have a few slides on the partners, useful links, and we'll have some time for some Q&A with those two projects. So we'll wait for the questions for both projects at the very end. And I'm also going to share a website here in the chat. It'll be linked in there so you can take a look afterwards if you want some more information on the projects and whatnot. So let's get started here. So some background on the IHII program, our Indigenous Homes Innovative Initiative. So it launched in 2019 to fund innovators, Indigenous-led housing projects. Sorry, got some notes here. So to fund innovative Indigenous-led housing projects, it's sponsored by Indigenous Services Canada and Infrastructure Canada and the Privy Council Office. It's led by 6 members, Indigenous Steering Committee, which you can see on the slide here, the 6 members there. So from there, I just want to share some goals of the actual IHII program. So it's to find and support First Nation, Inuit, Métis innovators who have housing ideas for rural and remote Indigenous communities. So with IHII, we want to address housing related challenges, working with these Indigenous innovators in the community, so on the ground. And we do this by understanding and inspiring these innovators that were selected to address these ideas and solutions through these challenges. So essentially, this IHII program is split into 2 phases. There's the Accelerator Phase, which has a total funding of $6 million. And then you have the project implementation or construction phase, which has a total of $30 million. So these 24 selected projects will have to complete a framework in order to move forward to the actual implementation construction phase. So that's how that works. And the beginning of the accelerator began last January, and I'll explain a little bit more about that when we go through the launch event. So just keep that in mind. There's two phases, accelerator and construction or implementation. So when we're talking about these two projects today on this webinar that we're going to speak with, they essentially completed that framework, which is pretty, it could be difficult, or there's a lot to it. And so a lot of the projects start in January and begin work, and some are at different phases in that framework. So it all just depends on the project and where it's at. So these two projects we're celebrating as they move forward into that implementation phase. So a little bit more on the actual program at the beginning. The applications were closed in August 2019. There was a total of 342, and out of those 342, 24 were selected to participate in this program. Moving forward, so with Cando's role with this initiative, we are part of the administration for this initiative, which began, as mentioned, in January with the launch event. So part of our role is to implement funding with the partners to deliver the IHII program, and there's several. So just to name a few there we work with, it's Eco Trust, Indigenous Clean Energy, Vancouver Island University, and Mass Design Group. There's quite a few more, and on the last slide, I'll show all of them so you can get an idea there. And also, so with Cando's role here, we work with the 24 projects to implement the funding for both phases for Accelerator and then also from implementation, and working with those projects along that process and assisting administratively with that. So working pretty closely with the projects, and I see Cynthia and Rachelle and Kim on a daily basis with these projects and others while they move forward into the next phase. And so another piece of the Cando's role here is to support the steering committee, which was the picture I showed earlier with the 6 members, with the process involved as their involvement with the program. So that could be with the process from accelerator to implementation right from January to now. And lastly, with Cando, we also support the IHII Circle, which I'll show you in a minute here, with the administration of that. And everything from working with the projects to with this IHII Circle page, and also communications beyond that. So we have our communications officer at Cando who does the social media. We do the webinars and work with ISC on the webinars and other resources, which I'll share in a second here on that IHII Circle page. So that is Cando's role. And now I'm just going to go through the different projects that were selected. So again, mentioned 24 projects. All of them have different stories and different solutions or ideas to these challenges in their regions or areas. There's a few mentioned here. For examples, multi-unit passive solar housing, affordable mixed-use housing complex, home repair, maintenance, education program, residents with wraparound health and support, healing lodge. So these are just a few to name, and I'll show you where you can find all of the projects and their stories and where they update regularly with their articles and pictures, and you can see their progress so far. So I'm going to show you that, but focus areas, yes. So what I'll do now is just move forward to the next slide here. So there's 6 focus areas for all of the 24 projects, and they may be in different areas as mentioned here. So I'm just going to go through the 6. So traditional First Nation, Inuit or Métis Nation building styles and techniques, using the home for empowerment, capacity building, support for local business, support for vulnerable populations, culturally inspired urban spaces for First Nation, Inuit, and Métis Nation people, safety, security, and accessibility, energy independence and efficiency. So all of these focus areas, the projects applied for the IHII program, and their area of, or their idea is focused around these different areas. So all very different, all very unique. And what I'm going to do now is just show you the IHII Circle, which I was speaking about earlier. So bear with me, I'm just going to stop share, and I'm going to share the screen for the website here. Okay, just let me know if you can see that. Cynthia, can you see that? I think so, hey?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Okay. So let's get to that. So here, and Beth posted in the chat where you can find this IHII circle. So you can register to be a member. And this is where you can find here on the side, this is the format of this website. You'll find all IHII projects. And here you can find in those focus areas, all of the 24 projects that were selected. And what I'm gonna do is just pull open one of the pages. This is Community Safe Village. This is one of the projects that we're speaking with today with Pikangicum. Here you'll find the focus area, type of housing, about the project, innovation, where, all kinds of information there on each of the projects. And if they post articles and pictures, videos, anything like that, you'll find it on here as well. So very interesting, and you can find out more about each of those projects. And then what I'm going to share here is just, we'll post on here, not only ourselves with IHII, but other projects. We'll post articles. There's a discussion board. You can chat with the projects or others in the same network, because this is an open to public kind of network here. You'll find files here. This is where I'm going to share. In here, you'll see IHII resources. Here you'll see the tools specifically for the program, IHII program, but you can definitely use it with the projects you're working with, whatever that may be. So I'm just gonna click on the one here. And the nice thing is they're both in English and French. So project assessment tool, you'll see it here. I believe you can also download it as well. So this tool, English and French, it was modified for the IHII program from Mass Design Group. It's a guide to help your team or project discover where you are in your project and where it could be with more resources and assistance or support. You go through specific areas of your project and see where you're at with readiness. And this is a tool you can use over and over again at different stages to see where you're at. So definitely something of use for anybody other than the IHII projects as well. So definitely good to have a look there. I'm going to show you another tool here. Planning for Indigenous Impact, English and French again. So this one is a guide to impact-driven design development, again, modified for IHII through Mass Design Group. This is a guide that for a process of starting your own capital project. It's a framework for design project from community engagement. So that's what that is here. And this is open to this network or to public if you're registered in here in the IHII circle. So yeah, definitely a lot of things you can see here. You'll see photos from the launch, project stories, articles being shared from projects or others in this network, from IHII as well. Webinar recordings, as mentioned earlier with communications with IHII, we do regularly monthly a webinar for the projects and for everyone interested as well, such as this webinar we're doing right now. So you'll see all the webinar recordings there if you ever miss one. So I'm just going to stop share there and share the screen again. I think you can see that. Okay, so from there, we are going to jump into the Accelerator event here that launched last January. So this was the very beginning of the IHII program and how we brought all of the projects together along with mentors from Royal Architectural Institute of Canada to work together and begin their projects. So here it was back in January, and it's crazy to think we actually traveled back then. It seems like such a crazy thing now, but yeah, we were in beautiful Parksville, BC, and it was so nice. There's such a beautiful place to be, and great to see all of these different innovators, leads, co-leads, mentors, and also the various different partners that were there come together and begin on the pre-design work and feasibility and community engagement. And this is where they access those tools we mentioned earlier and worked with Mass Design Group on that. So again, developing their innovative ideas into implementable projects. And this is where we began moving forward with the program. Some pictures there from the launch. A 4-day intensive workshop with 2 site visits to innovative housing projects in the area of Nanaimo. 100 participants total, which included innovators, co-leads, mentors, strong community and practice building throughout the event. Yeah, lots of great tools and resources given at that time, including the Indigenous impact tools shown earlier. Okay, so basically Accelerator to implementation. This is a process that involves a framework, a control framework, and they must submit whenever they're ready to submit these framework items for review. It goes through a review process and then approved. At that point, they're able to move forward to the construction phase. So far we have successfully approved the 2 projects that we're going to speak with today, Muskowekwan and Pikangicum project. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I have Muskowekwan Family Healing and Wellness Center ready to go. So I'm just going to hand it over to them, and I'm going to stop share screen here, and Rachelle will be able to share her screen.
Sure, bear with me here. Okay, I'm just had issues with my there. Does that work, Danielle? Can you guys just see my presentation?
That looks good.
Okay,
that looks good.
Yep. Okay, Cynthia, I'll throw it to you to kick us off here.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Cynthia Desjarlais, and I thank Cando for inviting us today to present. So I'm the lead innovator on the project with IHII, and we have Rachelle, who is presenting with me today. Our co-lead is Chief Reg Belrose. I'm sure some of you have heard of him throughout Canada, but Muskowekwan is a Saulteaux First Nation located in the Treaty 4 territory. We have a total registered population of just under 2,000 and about 650 on reserve. Why this whole thing originated was because we have one of the last standing residential schools in Canada. It was originally built in 1896. The original wood building burnt down, and we rebuilt, well, I didn't, but it was rebuilt in 1931, and then it was one of the last ones closed in 1997 also. And because of that, you know, there's a lot of pros and cons coming out of it, mostly, you know, the bad stuff, the dark history and things like that. It was declared on Canada's top 10 endangered places by National Trust for Canada in 2017. Why we didn't, the government gave money to each First Nation, I don't know, back in the early 2000s, late 1990s. And why Muskowekwan did not tear theirs down is because our community members, our elders, advised us not to. They said if it's torn down, it's out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So we have worked closely with Carleton University and the Israeli School of Architecture and Urbanism to repurpose the formal residential school into a place of healing, learning, community economic development, and commemoration. Having said that, we have a lot of ideas what we're going to move with that forward in the next year or so. So that's where it all originated from. Because of that school, there has been tons of different things that have come out of it, like the alcoholism, the drugs, the homelessness. Lots of people just got lost over the years. And I'd say almost every family in Muskowekwan have had family who've attended there and has gone there. I attended at the residential school in the 80s and things like that. So every one of us have been touched by the residential school in the area. And in addition, we have the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation out of the University of Manitoba come to the site and do sonar work to locate the unmarked graves that were buried underneath the school. When the school was rebuilt in 1931, they just built right over graveyards and things like that. So we've had them there to locate, and we're still in the process of it to date. We've had approximately 35 that have been identified. So it's still a process that we have to move through and heal from. You know, it was very shocking. We always knew that there was probably something underneath the school, and we just had, like, we had to get the universities and different programs to come and assist us with that too. So that's where we're at on that one there. So we have a short film that was done that is posted on our project page on the IHII Circle on the ICE Network website regarding that also. So our communities are suffering from the intergenerational impacts and traumas from attending this school. Our people are suffering, like I said, with addictions, mental health issues, poor physical health, high crime rates. It's ongoing, and it's probably not just Muskowekwan. It's probably everywhere across Canada and the First Nations, and that's the tragic part. But having the project that we're working on now, I mean, it means so much to people, and it's been community led, like right from the beginning. This whole project was community based, community led, and we've initiated engagements with them right through. There are strong beliefs that the current system is failing First Nations, and it is. Like, I would say it openly that the traditional way of doing treatment, individuals, you take them out of their home, you take them, and there's nothing there as a wraparound service when they come home, and they come back to the same issues, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So it was important for a new model of care and approach to healing to be developed for First Nations by First Nations people. And this has been a vision and a priority for Muskowekwan First Nation and other communities in the region. Like, it just wasn't our idea. It came from other people saying, we need to do this, we need to do that. And Muskowekwan, you know, we just said, okay, we'll see what we can do with this. And there have been many, like I said, there's many different programs and people who have contributed to this, and where we had to develop a culturally responsive home-like design for the center. The most important part of the vision was the center was focused on healing families, not just the individual. And this visual is a summary of the key elements of our family and cultural focused model of care. At the forefront of the healing journey will be traditional wellness and cultural methods of healing, complemented by additional trauma-informed care and wraparound supports in mental health, physical wellness, and life skills. We've always said the importance of traditional and cultural methods because, you know, if you go out into the Western way of treatment centers, it doesn't really focus on those. And that's why we totally understand that ceremony, smudge, sweats, traditional women's and men's roles, land-based programming, healing with all the different elements, the horses, the dances, the drums, the feast, those are really important to our First Nations. Like, we lost so much of it. And we said, if we're going to move with this type of project, that has to be front and center. We can't, not saying, you know, some have worked over the years, obviously, but this is what our community and the members wanted and needed. And because so many of them fall through the cracks, we deal with the after effects of everything. You know, we deal with the people who are coming out of incarceration, dealing with the deaths and things like that. And this is why we thought we have to recognize it and work with it. And I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and it was a tough time to be growing up and coming out of the residential school eras and making it work as much as we can. And we did. You know, we're truly survivors. And that's why we said mental health and addictions focus is our main priority right now. And all of the other key components, like the life skills, the training, employment readiness programs, and upon completion, like, this is what we said is what something has to be there for the families after they're done all of this. It's not just a 28-day stay. It will be encompassing a longer period, up to 3 months, and having them come home to something that have these long-term supports to provide a sustainable healing journey in the future. We have a lot of young people, it seems, living on the First Nations, and yes, some of them will never leave, you know, and those are the ones we will have to work with and support in the community. This project has been a long-term effort. Like I said, it's been almost 5 years, maybe, since we started talking about it. And it has strong support from our funders, the First Nations Inuit Health Branch, Saskatchewan Region of Indigenous, ISK, ISK anyway. The funding has allowed to bring on a team that could provide the expertise and horsepower to develop the project. Like the IHII Accelerator program has allowed us to round out the team, and our current project team is shown on this slide. Myself, along with Chief Belrose, has been a driving force for this project, and Michelle Holterman at Holterman Waller Strategies. She's our project coordinator for the project. Our architect team is a partnership between 1080 Architecture, Planning and Interiors, and Ray Goslin Architect Limited. Ray is also our IHII mentor as an Indigenous architect. Lakeland Log and Timber and KDM Constructors is our construction management partner. KDM is majority owned by the 3 Saskatchewan First Nations. Muskowekwan is one of them. Lakeland employs an Indigenous workforce, and a key focus on the construction project will be to maximize local employment and involvement to build capacity in the community. So with that, I hope that covers everything. And like I said, it's really dear to our community that this is working on. All of our members follow what we put out there, and they're just like full of encouragement. They tell us that we need this kind of project in the community. It should have been done longer, that type of thing. But you know what? It's here now, and I'm so happy. And once it's set up, I'm sure that we'd be able to move and do great things with the project and the wellness center once it's up in operation. So with that, I'll let Rachelle take it over and fill in the rest of the blanks there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cynthia. So good afternoon, everyone. My name's Rachelle Holterman, and like Cynthia said, I am project coordinator for the project. I've had the privilege and honor of working alongside Chief Belrose and Councillor Desjarlais and their community in advancing this project over the last several years. As a lot of you would appreciate and have probably experienced, these development projects come with a lot of complexity and adversity, and so often are multi-year. As you can see, we've laid out here, really this started back in 2016 when the need was identified by the community. And at that time, there was strong political support obtained from the Muskowekwan Band Council, the Touchwood Agency Tribal Council, which is within that region, the Chiefs of Saskatchewan, as well as the Chiefs of Canada at AFN, in terms of implementing a cultural responsiveness framework through the development of a center like this. In 2017, engagement with the community really started with a group of academic researchers out of the University of Regina to understand the need and collect demographic information from the community. And based on that input from the community, an early concept was developed for the Family Healing and Wellness Center, including the guiding principles for a new solution. In 2018, the initial concept was submitted to Indigenous Services Canada, and partway through that year, we secured our architect team, and they developed a high-level long-term concept design based on community engagement. In the fall of 2018, we opened up dialogue with ISC regarding capital funding. At the time, it was identified that this was on ISC's 10-year capital plan, but there was no indication of timing for that. As I know, there's always lots of many different priorities on those lists provincially and for each nation. In 2019, we were really focused on securing funding. The architect team completed the dream vision, we call it, which you see here, for the concept, which included a large central facility for the programming and 10 dwelling units for families of different size. And initial rough estimates were coming in at the time around 18 million. And the concept then was submitted to IHII. We had several project briefings with federal ministers and their staff, as Chief Belrose is well connected there. And we also submitted an expression of interest with the government of Saskatchewan for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure program. And the fall of that year, we also submitted an application for the IHII initiative. So later in 2019, it was really feeling like this project was starting to lose steam. While everyone was very supportive of the need and the concept, no project funding commitments were coming forward to help us advance things. But however, in December 2019, Muskowekwan received some very good news that the project was selected for the IHII Accelerator program. So we thought also it's important to recognize with any strategic initiative, it's important to assess the political and environmental context considerations that the project needs to fit within those priorities. In Canada and provincially, the existing landscape for leadership involves the TRC calls to action, Bill C-92, discussions happening about transfer of care and control of infrastructure and funding and health services more regionally and locally, as well as the increasing federal and provincial priority on mental health and addiction. So that led to a real strategic question for Muskowekwan in terms of, do we wait for these pieces to fall into place and take a number of years to secure capital and operating dollars for the big dream vision? Or do we try to right size the project to get to something to launch sooner than later and be part of the solution for these different pieces within the landscape? So based on this, Chief Belrose in early 2020 gave our project team this direction. And it was really about, we need to make this happen. We can't wait any longer to fund the big vision. We need to try to do what we can with the capital dollars we have secured in front of us. And we need to try to get this project to operation sooner than later to start healing our people, because the longer we wait, we see our people either going to jail or into the grave, and our families are continuing to fall apart. So we need to try to find a model that is practical in the beginning to get to a sustainable operation that we can build out over time. So this is, we were trying to think about kind of what was some of the unique paths that this project had to take, but also how might it relate to some of the other projects you might have, or lessons learned as we go here. I think Muskowekwan has really had to take some strategic approaches to solution development based on the different contexts we previously mentioned. This really had to be creation of a new organization to pursue a new way of healing. This has really been where a lot of the effort is going. The buildings support this, but overall we need a new operation. So a lot of time and effort has gone into creating a new nonprofit and a new model of care, which will be delivered out of the buildings that IHII is supporting us to advance. While we have struggled with keeping momentum on the project, it was really the passion of the community that kept driving this forward. And IHII was really a spark plug moment to help us get it going again. I think a key thing for this project was the ability to leverage an existing serviceable site that has access to water, access to utilities, some existing service roads, and existing subleases already in place. And so that designation process can sometimes add years to your project, as well as the cost for servicing infrastructure can run really high. So that was a kind of entrepreneurial pursuit of Muskowekwan to see how we could leverage a site that could help us to avoid some cost and get quicker to implementation. Like I mentioned, it was really important to start with a more practical scope that had a manageable capital and operating plan that we could get to launch sooner than later. And as well, this has always been seen as a new model of care that's kind of like a pilot program. And so it was important to start with a small number of families first in year one. So as a new model, we could be nimble and continuously evolve it and improve the model of care through practice. We've been fortunate enough to have Indigenous experts involved in developing the model of care guided by the community. And it was important to Muskowekwan that there's proof of concept and demonstrated success that will allow them to build out to that big vision over time. So this just shows that Danielle had mentioned the different phases in the IHII framework. So we are completed our feasibility. Through that, we did a scope change to right size the project to focus on a few dwellings through that. We also required a support letter from council to back our financial model, which I will talk to in a few more slides here. Right now, we are in the implementation phase where we are just finishing up our technical design and we'll be submitting our stamped drawings to Cando hopefully within the next day or two here. And then we are also finishing up our Class B estimate and underway discussions on contract documents. And so really we're looking to unlock those capital dollars to get into construction. And we are doing log building. So we had to, we found out that they need to be started their log preparation work in the winter months because of environmental conditions. And so we had to be entrepreneurial here again. We were able to obtain some bridge financing that has allowed our log builder to get started on log preparation in December. Otherwise, we would have had to delay our project to November next year because they do need to start in the winter months. So this just shows some pictures of one of the community sessions that we had out in Muskowekwan. Like Cynthia mentioned earlier, this project has really been driven, both the model of care and the design by input with the community. So this was obviously before COVID. This was back in 2018 and was a gaming session that our architects did around the site layout and different components for the high-level design concept. And we were able to have another community session in June in 2020. Luckily at the time, our COVID incidence in Saskatchewan was fairly low. And so we were able to do some creative community sessions by putting small groups into separate rooms and linking through technology to make sure we could continue to have that input. And so this just shows our site plan. It was important to have the long-term vision in mind. So we want to eventually build out to supporting 10 families on site, but are having a practical scope of 4 units to start. And it was important for the community that the site was laid out in a circle. And so this just kind of shows that long-term layout with the initial 4 units being built on the north side of the site. And this is just an exterior rendering of what that initial could look like with a large central gathering area outdoors that will be leveraged for ceremonies, group gatherings, and on the land programming. This is just our dwelling unit floor plan. What we had to do was make sure that our program facility was fairly similarly laid out to the family dwellings, because down the road, once we have more family dwelling units on the site, we'll require a larger programming facility. So then this current program facility will be converted into a dwelling unit down the road. So this just shows kind of our different layouts for those 2 types of units. And then it was important to the community to have a cultural element and central gathering area for smudging and sharing circles within each of the units. So this will be, this is a rendering of what that interior teepee place will look like, with a skylight open to that to allow the sunlight in, and there will be smudging done there. This is just an interior rendering of the program facility. It was important to have a group kitchen. Part of the programming is for lunch and suppers for the women to come and learn traditional cooking, and families to eat together. So this will support that well. And then this is just an exterior rendering as well. So I'm mindful of time here. Just want to breeze through the last few slides I have. This is just to show our log preparation is underway. It started just before Christmas. So this was really exciting for the project. It's really made it real, and that it's happening now. This is on Lakeland site. And so everything will be prepared and assembled, and then disassembled and transferred to site to assemble hopefully in the summer this year. And they just started the first round of courses this week, and we'll be starting the second round within the next day or two. And so in terms of our project successes, it was really important that it has been a community-led initiative. It's had strong support and leadership from the community, and everyone's been really committed to the purpose. We've had a really good relationship with our regional First Nations Inuit Health Branch ISC office here. They've provided us planning funding over the last several years to allow us to get to this point. And we've also been able to secure 2 years of operating support based on leveraging the IHII program. We've had strong academic and research partners supporting the model of care development. Obviously, the IHII award for Accelerator was a really high point for the project, and advancing now to the implementation phase. Taking the entrepreneurial focus to right-size the project was really key. And we're really lucky to have 2 Saskatchewan First Nation women working with us right now on the model of care. But really the resilience and motivation of the community has been really key to keep pushing this forward. In terms of project challenges, we are really creating a new model. It doesn't fit within the box of a lot of existing funding programs. So really demonstrating the improved outcomes is going to be really key. Starting a new organization from scratch has been a lot of effort, so that needs to run alongside the capital project. And as well, Councillor Desjarlais, Chief Belrose, there's so many priorities going on in the community, and now in dealing with the pandemic, it's always a challenge balancing all the many priorities those folks have in advancing. I think community engagement and council fatigue is something to be mindful of, so making sure that we have enough progress before we go back again the next time. For this project being on reserve, there's always a challenge, and with it being health as well, those jurisdictional pieces between what is federal and what is provincial. And then it's, for us, with this project, a lot of it has been the chicken or the egg. So with the IHII framework, it was important to demonstrate the operating model and funding commitments, but a lot of the partnerships with some of the child and family services organizations, they want something that's ready to open. So it's having something real and ready there that people can commit to. So that's sometimes a challenge for the project. And Cando had asked us what would our advice be for other projects based on lessons we've learned. Don't give up. These projects can be multi-year endeavors, and so let that why you're at the table really drive you through that adversity. Cando has been great when we've had ideas and questions. Reach out to Danielle. and she will help to guide you through. Have that team that's committed to the purpose, and then make sure that planning vision and scope is manageable to help you get to implementation sooner. I think it's important knowing that each project is unique. So a project in an urban center is going to have access to different funding opportunities than those on reserve. So I think it's important to keep that in mind and not necessarily compare yourself too close to what others are achieving in that regard. And so just taking some of those entrepreneurial approaches to whether it's cost avoidance through where you locate your site, and managing a sustainable capital plan that you can then get to operations and get things off the ground. So that is our presentation. Cindy, thank you guys for your time today. I'm looking forward to Kim's presentation. Cynthia, any closing comments?
No, I think we've said it all, and just looking forward to the next presentation. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Rachelle. So next we have Kim Sigurdson from Pikangicum First Nation project. So what I'm going to do is we have a video lined up. Kim, I'll play that first, and then we can hand it over to yourself.
Sure.
Okay. Great. And he can explain a little bit more about the video once we hand it over.
Sure.
All right. So let's start.
We are circling, circling together. We are singing, singing our heart song. This is family, this is unity, this is celebration, this is sacred. We are spiraling, spiraling together, onward, inward, creature to creation, holy mystery, Mother Earth, childbirth, this is Mother Nature, this is sacred. We are circling, circling together, we are singing, singing our hearts on. This is family, this is unity, this is celebration, this is sacred. We are spinning, spinning all together, we are singing over the rainbow. This is harmony, this is community, this is celebration, this is sacred. We are circling, circling together, we are singing, singing our hearts on. This is family, this is unity, this is celebration, this is sacred. We are ripening, ripening together, babies, elders, bozos and angels. This is how we grow, this is how we get to know, this is celebration, this is sacred. We are circling, circling together, we are singing, singing our hearts on. This is family, this is unity, this is celebration, this is sacred. We are circling, circling together, we are singing, family, this is unity, this is celebration, this is celebration, this is celebration, this is celebration.
Okay, great. So now I'll hand it over to Kim, and you can go ahead and get started.
Oh, thank you very much. That video gives me the shivers. It was like this whole project. No coincidences. Everything happened for a reason. Um, First of all, I guess I'll start off about who I am and how I got involved with Pikangicum. I spent about 35 years down in Los Angeles and had a company called the J Treaty Corporation. And what that company did was it brought down First Nations from Canada, rich and poor, mostly poor, of course, and we introduced them to the rich First Nations that were down there in casinos, and there was investments made, and I was part of what I thought was a really good business to be in, because it was a business for me, and it was also something to help out our people. Anyways, I came back after the when I started getting older. I had to come back home, and I ended up doing some charitable work. I had joined the Pikangicum Working Group, and also True North 8 is on the board there. And we focused on what Pikangicum needed, and they needed everything. So first thing that happened was I went through the community, and I was trying to get my grasp on, how to work with a community that had so many issues, so many problems. The suicide rate was beyond belief, and I ended up talking to the youth, the children, and they had lights in their eyes. They had a vision. They wanted to do something better for their lives, and God knows there's enough of them up there. I think there's about 75% of the population is under 25. So they needed hope. They needed something. I decided to work with these groups, these charitable organizations, and we brought millions of dollars into the community in various ways, whether it was a sawmill or equipment for the kids at school, things to help them out. As it turned out, I got involved with a project called the Transition Home. It's a bale house. And I learned something from that. I learned a lot from that. I learned how to engage with the population, with the youth, with the elders, and with people that were having an enormous amount of problems. I mean, it was in and out of jail. They were going to Kenora, and when they were in jail in Kenora, that was just a nightmare. I mean, they're coming out with more problems than they had when they went in. So we came up with this idea of putting together a transition home. And that means people can stay in the community when they're doing, time for minor crimes. It's up to the judge and the Crown prosecutor and the OPP and such. As it turned out, I ended up working, like the presentation before me. It's all about teamwork. And we started getting close to the Attorney General's Department and the OPP and NAN and all these great people that wanted to do the same thing. And at the end of the day, we found a business case in the transition home. It was saving the province of Ontario. It's going to save them $500,000 to $750,000 a year in sending people to jail, the security and everything else. So there was a business case. And hence, when we went into when we started on the safe house, we applied for it with Cando, and it was joyful because the information that we got at the very beginning helped us, especially the circle, helped us design this thing in our own minds, and helped us work towards engaging with people. And engaging with people, of course, during the times of COVID was pretty tough. So anyways, we started working on this safe house, and we decided that the chief told me one thing at the very beginning: do not put us in debt. And to Pikangicum's benefit, they've been coming out. Their financials are better than they ever have been. They're taking good care of their finances, and so to end that story, I ended up putting together. Our team ended up putting together a safe house that had a hotel on it. Pikangicum needed a hotel. They needed more jobs. They needed a place to put the mental health workers. The OPP needed a place to put people because they haven't got enough room in their facility. So there was a great need for the hotel and more of a need for the safe house because there's so many people that needed that help. So again, with the safe house, we found a way with the hotel next door to it to take some of the revenue streams, the profits, and push it back into the safe house. And I think we're pretty close to it. I think if the band falls, if we fall short, it's not going to be very much. I think that the hotel and everything will provide a really good revenue stream for it. So when we started doing that, we also wanted to reach out to the community. And I was very fortunate because I had been up there with these charitable organizations. I got a chance to meet the elders, meet the school, meet the children. Children are amazing. A lot of these ideas came from the children, not from the elders and the leadership, but from the children. They had their own ideas on what they wanted to see. They wanted to see artwork on the walls. They wanted to see color. They wanted a fire pit in the backyard, in the courtyard. So we went ahead and implemented all this, and it's worked out really well. The one of the things that we had that was the most challenging in the evaluation part of this project was COVID. And COVID was horrible, but yet we found something good about it. In order to go out and get people interested in Pikangicum in the safe house, we had to do a community consultation. How the heck are you going to do that when nobody can go anywhere? Everybody's locked down. Well, I managed to call up an old friend of mine, Tina Keeper, and if I think everybody on this phone would remember her. She did North of 60, and she's a star up in Pikangicum. The children love her. So she ended up doing a consultation over Facebook and TikTok and got everybody interested, created a lot of excitement. And that was one of the benefits to having, with COVID was we got a chance to do something different, to approach people differently. Excuse me. The other thing that we did was when we started working with Tina, I realized that a little star power really helps out. It creates, again, excitement and hope, and that's something we want to bring into our safe houses as well. We want people like her and Buffy St. Marie, for instance, that song you just heard before I came on. We got a hold of Buffy. We told her what we were doing. We asked for her to provide a song, and she did. And the words in that song are exactly what we're doing. We're community, we're family. And as it turned out, again, wasn't a coincidence. We had a drone shot of the community. And when you go over the community, we sent it it went on Facebook, and we showed it to some people there. And the first response we got from everybody, hey, that's my house. That's my uncle going down the street. There was ownership. They were proud. So to go on with the safe house, we ended up building it with a lot of back and forth with different people in the community. Chief and council were remarkable. They let us have a free hand in what we wanted to do, and we reported back to them and presented this to them, and they were very supportive. Anyways, the safe house it's got 8 self-contained units, and what we did. Sorry about that. What we did was we ended up putting 2 beds in every unit. One was a larger bed at the bottom. They're bunk beds. And the reason being was we found that a mother who's running away or fleeing from violence or any other people, elders, gay and lesbians, no matter who they were, we thought that they would probably want maybe their children or somebody within the family to visit them once in a while to help them through this. So we put an extra bed in the room and incorporated a number of other things throughout the facility to help the family get together in these large open areas and talk about their issues. And we were very fortunate just recently for Elon Musk, who gave us satellite. So now we're going to be able to have programs on the internet and have people communicating, Ojibwe people communicating with the other First Nations in their own language. I think that means a lot to them. It means a lot to us in what we're trying to do. Anyways, we have those 8 units and we put a hotel beside it, as I mentioned. That hotel has 6 units, and it also has a lounge at the very end. A lounge meaning to sit around and get out of your hotel room and be able to watch TV and do stuff. It's very warm. It's open. It's going to be a nice hotel. It's going to employ some people from Pikangicum. And also it's going to house some of the mental health workers and people that we require to come in and help us out from time to time. Excuse me. One of the other things that we did in our safe house was we put in offices because there was a great need to have offices for the elders, for the mental health workers. And lo and behold, we're renting out an office right now, which helps us with our revenue stream to the OPP. The OPP wanted to be able to have an office where people could walk into instead of coming into the detachment. If anybody's ever been in a police station, it's not a nice place to go to usually. And so the OPP wanted to change that around and have an office where people could come in off the street with some of their issues, usually relating to the safe house. And so we're driving some revenue streams from that as well. We also have an elders office that is going to be decorated in a way with pictures done from the people in the community. Well, just a number of things that the elders wanted in that room. We're going to be putting forth to make everything. I guess what the word is, we wrapped ourselves around that Ojibwe culture. We took everything we could, put it on paper, went back and forth, and even if you took a look at the very end there, you saw a little fire pit with the fire on it. Around that fire pit is willow. Willow is a very big thing for the people of Pikangicum. They use it in some of their ceremonies, and so we decided to have some weavers come in and weave a little wall around it to keep the wind and other elements away. And I think it looks rather nice. Everybody we've shown it to likes it. And I guess the last thing I have to say is I just want to go back to my notes here. Yeah. So in terms of the safe house and what it did, it created a team again with the OPP, Solicitor General, Attorney General, NAN, and a whole host of other people. That team is now gone up and because of the safe house, it has now gone up and we're putting in submissions for phase 2 living. We're putting, I think we got drawings up for and submissions in for 10 units, 8 to 10 units. And then we also have put together, because of this team, because we're all holding hands and we got leadership involved and elders and youth, we've also got a fairly large elders lodge we're looking at putting up, 20,000 square feet, 20 rooms, all 1-bedroom rooms, but with a large area that's going to be open and glass. So I guess what I'm trying to say is everything that was mentioned to me in the everything was mentioned in the presentation before me is basically what we did. It was all about teamwork, about passion, not giving up, and relationships. No matter what where they are, the relationships that we had with ISK, with NAN, even with the Assembly of First Nations. I know I went and provided them some information, asked for their input. All these all these different people from different organizations, whether Indigenous or not, had a lot to do with us being here today. And I think that we're going to be very successful with the Safe House. I know we are. And I also think we'll, because of the Safe House, we're going to be able to go out in the community and do other things with the team that we have. And I think that pretty well wraps up my presentation. I thank you all for giving me a chance to speak here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just share screen again and go back to the PowerPoint. We'll go through a few slides and then I'll open it up for Q&A. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so this slide here shows all of the partners for the initiative. A few I've named earlier. We are on here as well. So just gonna leave it there for a sec and you can take a look. All right. And then some useful links that from this webinar and from speaking on the IHII program and the two projects. A few we posted in the chat. We can do so again if you wish. This is an Impact Canada website here. We'll post in the chat there. This is where you can find more information on the initiative itself and also the 24 selected projects, another location where you can find more details on those projects. You'll see the link here for the IHII Circle. This is where the knowledge sharing platform is mentioned earlier, where you can find webinars we're hosting monthly. You can find on the project pages, resources available to everybody, discussion page, all kinds of great resources and tools there. Including the planning for Indigenous impact tools, as mentioned earlier, those two that I mentioned, and also Kim mentioned one earlier as well on the circle. That's the assessment tool. So you can find that in the IHII Circle. Once you register and become a member on that circle, you'll find all of those resources there. Okay, great. So now what I'm going to do is open it up to Q&A. You can either type it in and I'll read them off, and the presenters can also see them on there as well. Or if you'd like, you can unmute and show your screen or your video, and we can do it that way as well. I know there was the one question there, and I think everybody can see it in the chat. It was on, will the homes meet ASHRAE standards for healthy homes, especially standard 55 thermal comfort for human occupancy. So you can see it in the chat there. And there was from the Muskowekwan project, Vanessa Kelbeck. I believe she is there. Part of the team is in the architect area for Muskowekwan. She did answer there. So actually what I might do instead is if Rachelle and Vanessa, if you want to speak to that as to the group, we can go about the question that way.
Sure. Thank you, Aurelie, for the question. I'm definitely not the technical expert in this regard. I know in working with our log home builder, there was great opportunities in terms of energy efficiency. I know there's going to be heating in the floor, sustainability of construction. So I think all of that was really important to Muskowekwan in terms of the approach for building. But yeah, Vanessa, if you don't mind, are you still on? I don't see her anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't see her anymore. But yeah, I think the building envelope was really important. I think there's going to be radiant heating in the floor. And so those are some of the things that have been spoken about. Solar has also been spoken about as an opportunity as the scale of the project gets built out. I see Bob there. Bob, do you have any comments?
Yeah, hi, Orly. I can say that this was my concern at the get-go with log construction. I was concerned, how do we meet the building envelope requirements? You raised some very good points with the ventilation, and that also has, because we're going to be smudging, and indoor ventilation, indoor air quality is a big concern. And your point that in these times of COVID, we need to really be thinking, differently about how ventilation can help us really solve those problems too. So anyway, yes, it does meet the requirements, and I was impressed with the report that came back from the energy modelers. They had their own energy modelers provide us with their detail.
Bob, are those buildings slab on grade?
Yes, it'll be slab on grade, with in-floor heating.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that you're going to use in-floor heating, because we're just getting some incredible results when we activate that thermal mass. Like, it's really, we're very impressed. So I'm so grateful that if it's slab on grade and you're embedding that PEX pipe, that makes me very happy.
Yeah, and with children, on the floor and just that whole comfort level with our feet on the floor, it's just going to be a real comfort to everybody, I think.
Are they going to be able to use some that thermal mass for some cooling as well?
I have to say I don't have that. Sienna may have a bit more knowledge on that than I have, but the logs themselves provide a tremendous mass as well. And we do have the higher space in the design that allows us the ventilation, the natural chimney effect to work as well for ventilation, cooling.
Yeah, that's great. I think we, with climate change, we're going to have more demand for cooling days. And if that can be thought up front, can you use that slab that's sitting right on Mother Earth, which will be cool, if there's a way to transfer that heat to keep the occupants comfortable during our changes that we're going to have. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, Ray is also looking at accessing groundwater also to and the soil temperature to actually run pipes through the soil to assist that down the road. So we're going to leave the door open should the use of thermal energy the ground thermal energy be a possibility in the future. We're leaving that door open to connect that in the future.
Is the building heated with natural gas?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So we have a boiler. We have a domestic boiler that does the domestic as well as the hot water in the floor.
I don't mean to interject. I've just been silently listening, taking it in. So I'm part of the Indigenous Clean Energy Group, and I'm working on a project in IHII Nunavut, actually, and actually it's deploying to Baker Lake, Nunavut, so the kind of geological center of Canada. So as you can imagine, it's quite chilly. It's quite chilly up here. So some of the issues that we're dealing with is, when we're talking about that, ultra efficient energy model, Nunavut is kind of in a position right now where it's trying to develop its own high efficiency building standards. And so with our project, we're working with the federal government and the territorial government to, create that independent test bed through my company, which is the builder of the project. And so, some things that we've been looking at for sure, 100%, landing on radiant in-floor heating, and then trying to look at, what is the, most efficient type of thermal mass that we could use to retain that heat and, to dissipate that heat throughout the day in an Arctic environment, recognizing that there may be situations where maybe the heat might go out for longer term, power outages, things like that. Without cracking floors, if you're pouring concrete or anything like that, some other just things to consider. Just a random thought, just because it's just such an interesting group of individuals talking right now. I'm just interested what type of, I guess, boiler system you would use. So in Nunavut, we have, unfortunately, we're still using diesel-fired, furnaces and forced air and what have you now. And so with our project, what we're looking at doing is doing, condensing boiler system that's diesel-fired, looking for something that's, between that, 85 to, if at all possible, 95% efficiency mark. And I have spotted some things out of Germany, but I just really like to pick, I guess, of everybody on the call, I just really like to pick your brains on that. Thanks.
So can I jump in here, Bob?
Absolutely.
So, sorry, Alex, so you've got three choices. You can go with a boiler, a hot water heater, or you can use your furnace to connect to your slab system. And each system has its pros and cons. But one big thing when you're making your decisions, maintenance is a very, very important thing to consider. So keep that in your back mind. You want to ask the questions: what kind of maintenance is required with a boiler or a water heater? If you use the furnace, what is that maintenance issue? Can those three systems, is there one? And I don't know in the Arctic if you need air conditioning or not. Probably not.
No, we don't.
And then that helps you make your decision that, okay, which system will be best for you. But activating the thermal mass is, when you heat with air, it's a luxury we can't afford. The climate cannot afford. So if you can shift some of that heating to heating your building with hydronics, you're softening your carbon footprint. You're moving to a less gluttonous way of distributing the energy in the house. Nobody's really looking at this, but I hope the conversations do start. And we're having great success down here in Regina but we're doing we do mostly commercial, but we do in-floor heating, in-floor cooling. And it goes back to the teepee, how the teepee was designed. The fire had rocks around it. And those rocks were used to distribute the heat in that space. And so that's the principle, that's the knowledge that we bounced off of to start looking at distributing the energy inside the house.
Thank you for sharing. It's reassuring to hear that we're largely on the same track, and a lot of the information that we've been picking up is just really tried and true, tested other projects that have been going on in the South, particularly in the South, and seeing what's been really the best takeaway and the lessons learned of other projects like this. This is why I love to sit on discussions like this. I understand that our housing solution is going to be vastly different than something that's going up in Saskatchewan, that's going up in Alberta, that's going up in Alaska, that's going up somewhere in Norway. You know what I mean? All of those buildings are going to be vastly different in what they do. And so what we're looking at with our project is, how do we start to approach the idea? And I don't mean to hijack the discussion. I just thought I'd share some information just for context. We started looking at how can we approach the idea of Nunavut's first net zero house, and what type of strategies are we going to have to utilize when going there. And so looking at alternative energy, highly efficient building systems. You start looking at high performance building systems, I guess, like ultra efficient envelopes, for example, right? Controlling the air penetration within a home, for example. So looking at how do we build really tight homes, what types of systems should we be using. I mean, SIP panel construction obviously is something that we're quite interested in at this point, as well as the ability to acoustic seal those joints. But looking at other details, like in Nunavut, we don't have typical foundations, I think is a really nice way to think of that. All of our homes are on pile-driven foundation. And so, we're looking at how can we step away from that? Recognizing the North, unfortunately, there's 30,000 of us. That's 36,000 of us in Nunavut across the territory. There's one guy that happens to own the company up here that has a monopoly on drilling pile foundations. And as you can imagine, it's quite expensive, right? And so for myself, from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's a level of risk that I absolutely need to mitigate. And so, we're working with different companies right now for alternative foundation and types of structures that we can use. Like, for example, multi-point foundations are really great. But then you start looking at multi-point foundations and how does that, relate to something like hydronic and floor heating, especially when you're doing, maybe you're pouring epoxy resin flooring or concrete or whatever your thermal mass happens to be. How do you mitigate the risk that comes along with, fluctuating foundations like we have in the Arctic? Like our ground is permafrost. so there's a lot of challenges, as you can imagine. So anyways, I guess that's kind of just my thought on that. So really glad to be able to hear that we're definitely, or it sounds like we're on the right track based on the discussion that you guys have been having. And thank you very much for sharing your perspectives.
Great.
Daniel, I've got a question that may be helpful for the group. Perhaps we can capture what each of the projects' decision model is around the energy and the building envelope piece, and that we can share that somehow easily on the website so that if people are curious, they can sort of dive into that level of detail.
For sure. Yeah, we can definitely have that available on the IHII circle. So if either one of the projects wants to touch base on that right now, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll follow up.
Okay, great. Any other questions for the two projects or on the program itself? We do still have a few minutes, so I can ask maybe a couple of questions here for either of the projects. So one big one would be any advice for any on-reserve housing projects? What would you give in terms of advice for on-reserve housing projects?
I just had my speaker shut off. I'd like to go back to what you were talking about there with the heating of the floors. When we went to put up the bale house, the transition home, we used flat pack housing, flat pack walls. We used a system that would heat the floor, and at the time, Pikangicum wasn't hooked up to the grid, and we realized that heating of the floor cost a lot of money. So we went in and to put in a pellet stove that would operate. In case the electricity went down and they were using too much, we could go back to the pellet stove and heat the floor. What we learned from this so far is that the floor heating system is dynamite. I think it's something we should all be doing. But when we went to the safe house, we looked at cost, and we're going to, radiant heating. We're using electrical baseboards, but we also went into something that people can look at. It's called iSolar, and it's a solar panel on your roof or on your wall. And what it does is it moves the air. And they say it's going to remove a lot of the mold problems, mildew, and it also is going to help the air conditions within the homes. In Pikangicum, when you got 10 or 15 people living in a house, people wonder why the kids go to sleep at 7 or 8 o'clock. There's no oxygen in it. They're deprived of it, so they're not learning anything. They're tired all the time and lethargic. So we went to iSolar, and we're going to be using that technology in the safe house to see how it works. Another technology that we're working on, which is available, is from Natural Resources Canada. It's a solar panel, but instead of producing electricity, it produces heat. And this is what we want to incorporate in the floor as well, find other ways to cut the energy cost. And it also, they came out with it for a totally different reason. They thought that they could put this panel on the roof, which is a great idea. The Chinese are doing it. There's millions of them in China. What happens is that solar panel will heat your hot water tank. So I thought, big deal. That is a big deal. You're looking at 8 to 10% of your energy costs coming out of your hot water tank if you got a big family. So I just wanted to mention that in terms of what we're doing to be energy efficient, think outside the box. And now we got 2 facilities going up there. We're going to be able to judge which works better. I personally think the heated floors are the way of the future, and we should be always doing it. But thank you.
Okay, great. I'll hand it over to Rachelle. Did you guys want to add anything maybe for advice for on-reserve housing projects?
Sorry, I was on mute. I might just comment in terms of, I think there's been some good discussion today about thinking about that long-term and the life cycle costing, and evaluating while you're making those design decisions about weighing the operating and maintenance costs. I think ours is a little bit different than a traditional housing project, but we're really wanting to maximize our operating costs going towards the programming for families. So I think it was good to see, and as Bob pointed out, the energy modeling has come back really good. I think there's a lot of benefits to the log construction in terms of not only energy efficiency, but also need for maintenance down the road with the structure. There's good longevity there. So it was really important to us to be able to really maximize our operating dollars towards the programming for the families. I think another thing for us is, and this is a solution that we still need to kind of think about over the next year, is one of our model of care consultants raised, can we get into looking at how we can also support improving the home conditions for families when they leave the center? So I think that is going to be a really important consideration for us, and working with that aftercare programming with communities to make sure that families are transitioning into an environment that will help them to continue to sustain their healing journey.
Great, thank you. And I think we're just out of time here. So thank you to both projects and to the presenters from each of the projects. And I just want to note we have another webinar on the IHII Circle tomorrow. So with the 2 projects again, where we will dive deeper into more details from them and discussions among them and the other projects within the IHII program. So if you're interested, I would suggest to go onto the IHII Circle, register, and you'll see the link on there and all the details for the webinar tomorrow. So again, thank you so much to both of you from Muskowekwan and to Kim from Pikangicum. And for everybody joining us today, it's good to see some new faces on here, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for putting together.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.